Welcome into another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, the tariff talk may be getting a little tiring for some, but there are others, small and medium market businesses, who are living it, along with a tariff expert from Orillia who's helping them through the quagmire. We'll hear what he has to say. Lots happening in Barrie in terms of new facilities for the arts, entertainment, and recreation. We get an update from the mayor, some help for those living with PTSD and those living with someone with PTSD, maybe the best advice and help you'll find anywhere. And the Leacock Museum in Orillia opens a new exhibit this weekend about Prohibition and Stephen Leacock's role in bringing it to an end. We get the conversation started after this. Tariffs have pretty much everyone in a tizzy. Businesses worried about losing customers, consumers worried about rising prices. Enter Kyle Peacock, who has opened Peacock Tariff Consultants based in Orillia to help mainly small and medium businesses navigate the new norm and make it work to their benefit. But first things first, who is this guy, Kyle Peacock? And does he know his stuff? Barrie 360's Ian Maclennan was asking.
I had a calling for international trade very young, originally from Orillia. 25 years ago, I went to school for international trade and tariffs, loved every minute of it, came back to Simcoe County, and there wasn't a whole lot of international business in those days. So I went and worked overseas, and then for about 4 years with some major CPG companies, and then relocated to Toronto with my wife, and then she was from Barrie, so we've just recently relocated up to the Orillia area, especially with everything going on, and it was at the point where it's a great area. There's just such a need for the small to medium-sized businesses that need that tariff support, where it's an afterthought, and that's where some of the big organizations really take advantage of situations similar to these bills where it's lobbying and such. So our clients, were really there to help support them with all of this that is coming up. Most of them are local, but we do have clients across the globe.
Kyle, obviously the focus has been on tariffs, and I think for a lot of Canadians it's been an education too, maybe one they didn't need, or maybe they did need. I'm just curious, the big beautiful bill, as Donald Trump called it, it reminded me of the ominous bills that are passed in our legislatures here, that it's kind of like, oh, the fine print, I don't have the time to read it, and if it impacts me, I'll deal with it, even if the bill has passed. How does this bill in Washington impact small and medium-sized businesses and your clients, our clients?
So the big one that I would call out to everyone as a full stop that we're alerting our clients is that they've expanded the civil penalties framework under the Tariff Act of 1930 in this bill. So now customs law violations will be enforced significantly higher. So before it would be a slap on the wrist, now it's significantly more, where you will be either facing significant penalties, loss of export or importing licenses, as well as they've opened it up to jail time. So, and they have given significant amount of money to the customs borders. So they are treating that very rigorously now. So in the past, we had such I'd say, a lax relationship with the U.S. where you could get away with saying, oh, it's high level, you'd be importing apples. Now you're going to see the level of detail needs to be, okay, I'm importing red delicious apples from Midwest U.S. It's going to be the level that most small to medium-sized businesses aren't familiar with. And obviously, as you get more granular, it does change the tariff amount on that. So if your red delicious apples, 5% tariff, it could be a Macintosh apple that was 10%. So it's the level of granularity is very important, and that's what we're working with our clients on is, okay, let's get the spec sheets from our vendors. Let's go through the process to identify what these tariffs are and where does it make sense that for a grocery chain not to stock Macintosh apples anymore due to the tariff, and double up the shelf space for Red Delicious due to the tariffs and the impacts on there.
So you said that it used to be or was kind of lax. So is there something wrong with making sure that everything is being followed by the letter, or is it just businesses may have not been aware, or now that the screws are being tightened?
I believe in most cases with our clients, it has been that it was that they were aware, but throughout the NAFTA process and then the later agreement after that, it was determined that if you were 90% of the way there, the enforcement just wasn't there as well. So now that there's been a significant amount of dollars from this bill to have their border security and their imports checked, now every single bill will be reviewed instead of one every 50. So we'd have clients that would only have one every 50 bill ratings reviewed, and the audit process was very lax, and I think that's because we had such an open door relationship with our partner to the south.
Or we thought we did anyway.
Yes, that has obviously changed very quickly, and it's not just with tariffs, it's relationships across the board, tourism. There is a significant amount of things we are seeing, our clients are seeing, where attitudes have changed towards Americans, towards Canadians from Americans, and vice versa.
Do some of your clients, here locally, small or medium, do they have the options to look inward as opposed to, the swap, the trade with the U.S., or?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to tell this for the local manufacturers, we have a local manufacturer of high-end wine in the Nova Scotia region. 97% of their exports outside of Nova Scotia was going to the U.S. It was mostly to Manhattan and Boston and the Upper East Coast. The client has determined that they want to diversify their exports because if Mr. Trump determines that wine is the next thing on his hit list, then this company has 97% of their exports in one basket. So we've worked with them to identify other regions that would be interested in the wine. So we have had them source across Ontario. It was due to location. It was easy for them to ship to New York and Boston from Nova Scotia, where now they are targeting and have made quite a few inroads into the Ontario regions, the Quebec, and across provincial borders.
Do intertrade barriers come into play where we're seeing, at least some have suggested that it's more theater than anything, but the breakdown of these barriers too, does that impact on how you, in terms of where you to redirect clients possibly?
Yes. So I would say there's a bit of theater. Like anything with these bills, at the announcement does not mean that it's in effect. A lot of these cross-provincial barriers will go down over the next 24 months, and so it's not as immediate relief as some small businesses would like. One of the issues that we do see in Canada, as we've kind of regionalized all of our different metrics. So, for instance, if we're shipping something from Ontario, say it's fully valid, legal shipment on a transport truck, and it weighs 45,000 pounds, it can't actually go on Quebec highways weighing that much. They have a limit of, say, 39,000 pounds. So actually, you're seeing that, okay, due to the cross-provincial barriers, you aren't able to ship the full amount. So small details like that the government is working through, which is wonderful, and obviously as that takes time, but the most encouraging sign is that everyone is willing to work together. You haven't seen the pushback like you have in previous years of protectionism.
They've really been left with no choice, though.
Well, I think this is a blessing in disguise, the situation that is happening in the U.S. to Canada. It is going to make us stronger as an economy, and just similar to how our clients are having to diversify, we're as a country, we're having to diversify our market as well.
It's kind of interesting. During the pandemic, a lot of businesses thought we had the P word. We're going to pivot. That's really come into play? It hasn't disappeared. It's just on a different situation now.
Correct. So I think this is highlighting some of the obviously needs for businesses that need to have strategic sourcing. A lot of the roles that small to medium-sized businesses struggle to fill, as it's in the previous, I'd say, lives, you would have one supplier overseas and you would just order from them and you would get in their cadence, whereas now with the geopolitical issues that are all over the place, you need to be able to pivot, like you said, on a dime, where you may need multiple suppliers. You may need one in the Far East. You may need one in Europe. You may need, obviously, just to ensure that you have the brand protectionism of ensuring that you are not leaving yourself in the lurch because of a geopolitical issue, which obviously as a small business or medium-sized business is tough to ensure that you have the labor managing the geopolitical issues, and that's where we come in and are able to give support and guidance. We do the complete suite, everything from distribution channels as well as forward-looking of ideally where you would want to source and what we anticipate issues being.
And finally, the uncertainty for small and medium businesses, but even for you when you're trying to do your job and navigate for these companies, to try to crystal ball gaze Donald Trump seems impossible. How challenging is it for you in your role and for these businesses?
What we're giving to our clients currently is this relationship with Donald Trump, agreement signed or not. I believe that you're going to see a very uncertain 4 years of transportation, geopolitical issues with our neighbors to the south, and a lot of our clients are looking to source elsewhere, either source elsewhere or have our clients elsewhere. So we have seen a significant amount of our clients targeting Europe. Obviously, there's transportation costs, but they're willing to take the hit on the transportation to ensure that they have the stable market. The uncertainty of the market in the U.S. is creating a lot of concerns for a lot of the small to medium-sized businesses, and the one way to interact that or react to that is to find a stable market that will be purchasing your products.
You're in the brushes, so to speak, with what's going on with small, medium businesses and obviously those that operate them. But what for the average Canadian can we take away when, we've heard tariffs before, but we really didn't, maybe some of us didn't pay attention, intertrade barriers. What have Canadians, you think, learned from this experience that, goes on day to day?
From my standpoint, I think it's a very good learning for Canadians to understand that just how reliant we all are on global supply chains. And with that, realizing if emergencies happen, what is actually domestically produced that we're able to satisfy. And I think that's what we're seeing, where there's a lot of clients that are saying, we would like to approach a market that doesn't have a domestic supplier. We would like to be in this business because there is appetite for a domestic supplier.
Our thanks to Kyle Peacock of Peacock Tariff Consultants based in Orillia. His website is peacocktariffconsulting.com if you're looking to connect. A new rec center in the south, a new art center downtown, dreams finally coming to fruition in Barrie. Here again, Ian Maclennan getting the update from Mayor Alex Nuttall.
Welcome, Mayor Nuttall. Lots going on. There has been lots going on in the city of Barrie. Lots of big projects. Seems to be nonstop. The South Barrie Mixed-Use Recreational Complex. We've got a Performing Arts Center. I know that script has been rewritten a number of times, but we're talking millions of dollars. I'm just curious. Let's talk about the South End Rec Complex. How did that come to fruition, and where does it stand right now?
Yeah, well, in about 2008, I moved a motion to move forward with the rec center for Southeast Barrie, the Hewitt's Creek Recreation Center, and we were trying to, over the years, obviously I wasn't around anymore after it was approved, we were trying to, as a city, purchase land on Yonge Street That would have been about 13 acres for $20 million. And over the last couple of years, we've decided that, that didn't make a lot of sense to build two separate rec centers, one in Southwest, one in Southeast. It didn't make sense to spend that much money on land when we knew that there was going to be a large price tag for the actual facilities themselves. And also, it didn't make sense to build these facilities without having the proper fields and baseball diamonds and whatnot around it. So we decided not to purchase the land on Yonge Street, to then go after land at the corner of Mackay and Huronia. And we'll be putting in baseball diamonds, soccer fields, a cricket pitch, dog park, alongside a library and the recreational facilities, 4 ice pads, because we've taken the 2 facilities and we've turned it into 1, along with 3 gymnasiums and multiple pools.
Now, there's a projected cost about $378-79 ballpark millions of dollars.
A little less than that, because we actually reduced the size of the library associated, so I think it'll actually be less than that.
And what is there a timeline for this project? I know some people said, well, wait a minute, the YMCA is so close. But then I remember many, many moons ago, Jamie Massey building Georgian way in the south end where there's nothing there, but people will come.
Well, yeah, I think it's important to take stock of what we have available for recreational facilities and services. If you go back to the date in 2008 when I moved the motion to build this facility, you'll know that the YMCA still existed in the city of Barrie, and the Dunlop Arena still existed in the city of Barrie. The city was about 110,000 people. We're 50% larger than that in terms of population, and we haven't seen an increase since then in any recreational facilities. We've seen a decrease due to the closure of the Dunlop Arena and the YMCA. So you probably saw a 20% reduction in recreation services, and at the same time, you saw a 50% increase in population in the city of Barrie. The YMCA now is being built at Sadlon Arena. It's under construction. They have a very specific mandate and way they do business. They're including things like the youth haven into the project, and immigration services and daycare services and all of these things. That's not really what the city of Barrie does when we build recreational facilities. We've aligned it with Tourism Barrie's plan to create amateur sports related tourism. And at the same time, we've worked with all of our minor hockey leagues and soccer leagues and so on and so forth over the years to determine what the need is going forth for each of these organizations or for the young people to be able to play. So I think we're still playing catch up, quite frankly, even when we've completed this facility, in the sense that the YMCA is going to be complete. And then I think probably 2 or 3 years after that, we'll have the rec center complete as well. We still have to design it. We still have to ensure that all of the site is able to be used appropriately. There's going to be some environmentally protected lands on this site at Mackay and Huronia, so we need to properly determine what the footprint is before we proceed.
Do you want to get those fields in first, though, if you can?
100%. I mean, it just makes sense to the city to be able to use as much of the facility as possible, as fast as possible. But that's not competing with anyone else, around the city. That's just providing more capacity for soccer, baseball, lacrosse, and all of those types of things.
For dollars and cents, in terms of costing this and how it will be funded, and at a taxpayer look, where is it at now? And will you be seeking extra dollars from?
With rec centers, the developers pay for them. So it's quite a nice situation where you've got 90% of the dollars will come from the development community, 10% will come from taxation, and it's something we've been collecting and saving towards for the last 25 years.
Now you've also got a performing arts center, $65 million projected cost along the waterfront. I guess really Simcoe Street, bottom of Bayfield Street. If anybody hasn't seen the drawings, they look spectacular. Barrie360.com. I know we've posted them there. We said there's been so many rewrites to the script for the arts community. Will this be the real deal?
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Look, I think that the arts community has been told, go create a plan, go create a plan, go create a plan, come back with what you want your plan to look like, and then not had the funding allocated in order to deliver on the plan. It's been kind of the story for the city of Barrie over the last 20 years has been, we're going to dream up what Barrie could be, but then we're not going to appropriately fund the things that need to be funded. So before I get into the Performing Arts Center and how beautiful and awesome it is, because I am a big supporter of this project, I think it's important to actually step back and take stock and say, how is this possible? How are these projects possible? And they're possible because we did a couple of things. One, we froze the operating taxes in the city of Barrie. We proceeded with our 2% capital surcharge to pay for capital projects. 3, we have an incredible investment team. Over the last number of years, I think it's $80 million that we've had since October of 2022 in increased revenue associated with our investments of our reserves. And we've been cutting things out of the capital plan that didn't make sense. The Performing Arts Center was one of those things. The existing proposal had been allocated an eventual cost of $167.5 million. That's now cut down to 75. So by doing all of these things, we've set the table so that we can actually proceed with projects like the Performing Arts Center that have been left behind for generations. This Performing Arts Center on the waterfront, it's going to include a major theater inside or performing space inside, because it's not just theater productions. It's going to include a smaller venue that will seat up to around 300 people, including dinner tables in that. There's going to be a restaurant and a cafe here. And one of the beautiful things about it, because we don't want a white elephant sitting on the waterfront, right? One of the beautiful things about it is when it's not being used for the performing arts, and we're going to have all of those seats can go into the ground or be removed and put into storage. And we'll be able to run conventions up to, 1,000 in one of the spaces and probably 500 to 600 in the rest of the space.
Might get a few musical concerts in there too that
100%.
bypassed Barrie before. In terms of cost, again, will the city be seeking dollars federally, provincially?
Yeah, on this one we will be, because it's not the development community that's paying for it. This is coming from Electra dividends. It's coming from some projects that we're canceling in order to facilitate it. One of the projects that we actually have in the books is the Spearcatcher parking lot redevelopment. That doesn't need to happen anymore because of the theaters going there. So we can take that budget and allocate it to the work that needs to be done on site for the theater itself. And we've also, as I said, we've cut the actual overall cost of the theater from $167.5 million down to 75. The other piece that we've done is the property on Dean Avenue that we sold. We've allocated those dollars towards the Performing Arts Center. We've got 2 other properties we're working through at the moment that we'll consider doing the same thing. The community is going to be fundraising in the neighborhood of $8 to $10 million as well. When you put the land, the fundraising, the community, and the dollars we actually have in the bank, which is I think about $23 million somewhere in there, 21 to 23 million. And if you put those all together, we're already sitting at about $40 million saved for a $75 million facility. I imagine we'll have more dollars that come down the road through some sale of land. And the balance needs to come from the province and the feds. They need to be at the table on this project. I think it's a long-term project for the city of Barrie, and one that will support the entire region.
I always find the interest between the arts and the sports community that they're not clashing. Sometimes it's perceived that way. I think it was Deputy Mayor Thompson the night the sports complex and the Performing Arts Center got a nod from council that bridging together, focus on the arts and the sports community. How challenging is that, though? Because, everybody wants a piece of the pie. And I can see where the arts community sometimes feels a little left out.
Well, I think it's, you have to look at a few things. One is the number of users, right? And yes, tourism's a major piece of it, but really, I care most about the users that are in the city, not the ones that are outside the city. The second piece I think you've got to look at is what other facilities are available. And we're at capacity when it comes to our youth sports in the city, being able to rent times, get pool times, get gym times, ice times, those types of things. The other piece is we're over capacity when it comes to our arts community, right? So we don't have the facility that people have been asking for to be built over the last 25 years. It just hasn't happened. Bruce Owen talked at length about getting this facility done and complete. For the first time ever, you're seeing an actual funded plan moving forward from a 50,000 foot advantage or vantage point down to kind of the 10,000 foot vantage point, and the costing and actual final design taking place that's never happened in this city for a performing arts center. So I'm you got to balance all the interests, but when you look at what the plan is for the city of Barrie going forward, to be able to create the YMCA free of charge to the city, right? And to be able to get those recreational services just going, big win. Getting the rec center going that was supposed to be done 20 years ago, big win. Getting the performing arts center moving and actually built, big win. And you attach that to what's happening with Lakehead University right downtown and Georgian College right downtown. Massive wins. I mean, these things are actually happening because we have controlled our costs of City Hall, and we're investing in the infrastructure of the community that people have been asking for generations.
This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely, joined by author Angela Davey, who has written a very pointed book, very pointed title, Fuck You PTSD, 30 Things You Can Try to Help You Feel Better. Welcome to the program, Angela.
Thanks, Dan.
This was a project born out of necessity for you.
It was, yes.
So fill us in on what happened, and then we'll talk about what you found out on the journey.
I've been working in law enforcement. I'm on the accounting, finance, and administrative side for almost 24 years. I'm married to a police officer and saw the need for additional resources for officers struggling with their mental health. My husband was diagnosed with PTSD in 2018, and we found out very quickly there's not a lot of resources, or they're not easily accessible. So I used what I knew from my background, which I can get into, to help him, and I wrote a book about it.
Well, and this is the thing. You have a background in wellness and health and stress management, and still you had trouble finding resources to help you deal with this.
We did, and it seems to be a common theme. I mean, we live in a small city in Northern Ontario, about 80,000 people, but even when I talk to counterparts in Southern Ontario, it's hard to find resources. There's waiting lists for resources, and people don't know what to do, especially when they're in a situation where their mental health maybe isn't great. They have a hard time making decisions and finding resources themselves. So I wanted something that was easily accessible to people, something that they could do on their own and not have to actually go out in the world, which can sometimes be a scary place, and stuff that they can try perhaps with their therapist as well.
Fill us in, let us know what kinds of things your husband has been dealing with, and then in turn that you are dealing with in terms of helping him out. Yeah,
absolutely. He was able, luckily, to find a therapist fairly quickly, which isn't always the case for everybody. But we just found that he needed more tools to help supplement those periods in between talking to somebody. So, I mean, you might talk to somebody once a week or once every 2 weeks, but in between you have all sorts of things that trigger you, that cause you stress. So we worked with tools such as meditation, tapping, or emotional freedom technique, it's called, all sorts of different things that I learned in my yoga and my wellness background to see how he responded and how they impacted him and what worked immediately and what didn't work. And we did a lot of trial, and thankfully he was very open to trying all this stuff. I got his feedback from the perspective of a first responder and from the perspective of a skeptic. And I used the book to explain these 30 things in a way that somebody who would be a skeptic would understand them. I went into the science or the experiential evidence in it and explained how to do it.
All right, so you have 30 pieces of advice here. What would be the most important piece of advice out of all of those?
Well, the most important piece of advice for me is to make sure you're getting help. And I talk about that in the first chapter of the book. It's not actually one of the healing modalities. It's the first thing I set the book up with, saying, get help, and then start to use the tools that I talk about. The one that I find, and I mean, everybody's different. Every tool works differently for different people. Meditation is a big one. A lot of people find really helps them. Journaling, I've had a lot of people with success with journaling. It depends on, like I said, everybody's different. It's going to depend on what works for you in that time, in that moment. So that's why I wanted 30 things. So there's lots of things for people to try.
Sounds like some of them are very simple, but some of them may be more complex as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of them, and I set that up in the book that, you know, it's not a type of book. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. You don't read it straight through, basically, unless you want to, but you kind of flip through it and see what appeals to you and try maybe some of the simpler things or maybe some of the things that you've heard of. And then once you're comfortable with that and you see that it's working, perhaps, maybe you're more open to trying some of the other things that you've maybe not heard of or tend to be what I call in the book a little woo-woo, such as energy healing is one of those ones. I'm a Reiki master, and you know, a lot of people don't know much about energy healing or maybe don't understand it. So once they try maybe meditation or journaling, they might be more open to say, hey, if this stuff works, then maybe there is something to this energy healing.
And I will hazard a guess that through this journey, you have been able to help your husband deal with his PTSD and in turn help you out with helping him out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's tools that are his go-tos, and meditation is one of them. There are tools that are my go-tos, and everybody will have their own, like I said, choose your own adventure, pick your tools. And you need them for those moments. And I tell people, too, practice them before you're in crisis. Practice them when you're in a state of calm so that when you need those tools, you know how to use them.
So here you're in the middle of this situation with your family, you and your husband, and you're having trouble finding resources, and now you're in search of those resources and you're writing a book about it at the same time. How much stress did that cause you?
It was a fair amount of stress. Yep. Thankfully, like I said, he's very open to trying these things, and it took 3 years to write the book, so it took some time. But yeah, we made it through, and there's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of trial and error, and I hope that people can find what we call post-traumatic growth or even just better stress management from using some of these tools.
You're going to be in Barrie later this week signing copies of the book, I understand.
I am.
So tell us about that. When, where, what time, and are people going to be able to come up and ask you any kind of questions?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to be Indigo in Barrie on Friday, July 11th from 11 to 4. My husband, Mike, will be with me, so people can come and ask me questions about the whole process of writing the book and the tools, or they can come and talk to him about his journey with mental health and PTSD. And
so living proof that there is life after this, that you can start to overcome it. It's probably a lifelong journey after this, but there are ways to deal with it.
Absolutely, and I make no bones about it in the book. It's work, and you've got to put the work in, but it's worth it to put the work in and come out the other side feeling better, feeling stronger, using the experience to help you grow and become that stronger person, hopefully on the other side.
Angela, thanks for doing this book, and thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much.
You know him for his humorous short stories, but Stephen Leacock is a Canadian icon for more than his literature. The Leacock Museum in a new exhibit, ready to delve into his role in fighting against and bringing to an end Prohibition. Quite the story, actually, as our Ian Maclennan heard from Museum Experience Development Officer Amanda Marino.
Amanda, the title of this newest exhibit, For the Love of Liquor, what's that about? Because I'm trying to tie that in with Leacock.
Of course, yeah. So we are opening our newest exhibit in the basement billiards room and wine cellar of the Leacock Historic Home. And these areas of the home have been closed for quite a while to the public, so we're really excited to open that back up with the new exhibit. In the exhibit, guests will learn about Prohibition in Ontario, and also one of the longest dry towns in the province, which was Orillia. It's actually dry until 1961, which is pretty late for Prohibition. People will also get to discover the role that Stephen Leacock played in the repeal of Prohibition. He was very important to it, and also his own family's history in the alcohol industry, which is really neat, too.
Yeah, Leacock really had an issue with Prohibition. I think where Quebec, where it wasn't in place, I think he referred to it as an oasis in a dry desert of virtue.
He really had a way with words.
Yeah, no
we
kidding.
have lots of quotes throughout the exhibit as well that he has said, and I think that's my favorite part.
What was his opposition to Prohibition that, got him all, because bent out of shape about it?
He really believed that it shouldn't be a criminal offense to have a beer or two, or so he says. And he was very passionate about it. He came from, a family that was in the alcohol industry, but he also saw the other side of it. His father was an alcoholic too. So he was kind of able to step out of that and see the greater picture in that way.
And yes, his connection with alcohol, and I'm not talking about his father, but in the business, was it wine?
So the Leacock family owned a port wine business. It was called Leacock's Madeira. It's actually still in business today, and you can still purchase the wine, not through our LCBO, but it's still purchasable. But they did make their family fortune on this wine. Unfortunately, it was squandered away over the decades until it made it to Leacock, and by that point, he didn't see any of the funds from the business. But he did have that family history.
His connection to Orillia, obviously, the sketches, but just the issue that Orillia was dry until 1961. Is there any reference to that in that book?
Yes. So what's actually interesting is that Orillia went dry in 1908, and that is when Leacock purchased his property, which he termed Old Brewery Bay, which is a common name that you'll see in Orillia. And then it wasn't abolished until 1961. So that was after Leacock actually passed away. So we never saw Prohibition be abolished in Orillia. So I think hopefully he would be pretty happy that we're doing this exhibit on his impact. But he was friends with some very influential people that helped abolish Prohibition.
Now you talk about the downstairs part of the Leacock Museum, and why has it been the wine cellar or billiards room? It's been off limits, or?
Yes. So it has been off limits for many years now due to flooding issues. But since that's all been taken care of now, we're really excited to open it back up. It's an amazing room. As I said, the billiards room is huge, and it would have been a space that Leacock invited all of his friends over to after hours and had a great time. So, we're very excited about it.
Now, do you know any history of Stephen Leacock? There's always been talk about underground tunnels in Orillia. Do you think Stephen Leacock knew of those or may have been doing some tunneling himself?
I have a suspicion that he knew about the tunnels and perhaps walked along them. I have heard rumors that they found some of his books inside the tunnels as well, which is quite interesting.
What do you hope people take away from this exhibit?
I hope people take away a new understanding of Stephen Leacock's relationship with alcohol or the alcohol industry. I know there's a lot of rumors going around that Leacock drank, and we actually have some funny stories about that as well. We have a suspicion that he would occasionally go out into town and pretend that he was drunk to get some ammo, you could say, for his stories. So we do have quite a few different examples and really interesting things to see.
So quite a relationship with alcohol.
Mm-hmm, definitely, yep. Yeah, we were so inspired when we were reading so many of his books, and he would often have characters that were impacted in some way by alcohol. They would have people showing signs of drunkenness or things like that, so we needed to kind of delve into the history there. Kind
of interesting, though, because being the humorist that he was, but yet he had obviously his father was an alcoholic, so he saw both sides of the coin, I guess.
He definitely did, yes. So he had a bit of a darker family history there. His father did have a long time struggle with alcohol abuse, and that kind of led to Stephen Leacock actually telling his father to leave the household and never return, and he ended up taking on the financial responsibilities for his family, being one of the oldest sons of there's actually 11 children in his family. So yeah, he had a big relationship and past history with his father in that way. But it's kind of neat that he could see both sides and kind of put that away to, impact people being able to drink alcohol again.
And those that are of age, there is a special Leacock lager? There
is. So to celebrate the opening of the exhibit, we're actually having a pop-up speakeasy, which is really fun. This is actually this Saturday, July 12th, and it's going to be super fun. We're working with Timothy Wilford, who's performing 1920s and 1930s music. Le Petit Chapeau, who is doing historical clothing demonstration, and we've partnered with Christian Craft Brewery Co. to create a new Leacock lager, which everyone will have a free can of, which is pretty exciting.
Have you had a sneak sip?
I might have.
Oh, there's the official denial.
Great.
Yeah, good. There you go.
Yeah.
So we say cheers and bottoms up to Stephen Leacock.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian for his input, to Matt Ladder for his technical touch, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Blue Sky and X at Barrie 360, on our website, barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcasts available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.